Hi, this video is for anybody looking to see if they want to do binge code or not, or what was previously known as bulimia help method when I started probably 15 months ago. My name is Racheal, and since I was a teenager, I struggled with bulimia. So long, in fact, it's added up to 17 years. And there have been so many therapists, psychiatrists, books, workshops, Tony Robbins. I tried all the things. And I'm sure on some level, all of that helped to an extent. But I still always had this deep-seated yearning to binge and purge. Ultimately, I decided I needed a consistent program, I needed structure, and I chose to go with bulimia help method, which of course is now Binge Code, and I am so happy I did. And the biggest difference between traditional therapy that I experienced and even the methods I went through before I reached Binge Code was that none of them had a plan. I would go to speak to a therapist and I felt like I was judged. I felt like I needed to be a good student. I wanted to say that I had a great week when I didn't. I just didn't feel comfortable. I also found more reasons why I had bulimia during that therapy, and it only fueled my eating disorder. It was just more excuses for why I needed to binge and purge. It ended up being counterproductive for me. This is not to say that all those other modalities can't help or haven't worked for other people, but for me, it just wasn't helping. I started with bulimia help method, Binge Code, and I started meeting with Marcella weekly, and I really liked that there was structure. For each call, there was an intention behind it. We covered important topics, and then there were takeaways. There was homework, and there was no getting into family issues and the reasons why I was this way and sulking on that. No, it was very much about being curious as to why things were triggering me and working to build systems in place to prevent that from happening. And when it did happen, to have a plan to overcome it. It was so much more constructive. What I've really gained out of this program too are three major concepts. One is to not be ashamed of my eating disorder. I'm convinced that if anybody else were in the predicaments I was and that had the conditions I did, they probably would have ended up in the same spot. And I hope that brings you comfort. So not being ashamed. Also, it's good for you to know that if you do have an eating disorder, you are not that eating disorder. That does not need to be your identity. And that's something that I think kept me stuck in it for so long. One last thing that kept me in my eating disorder was the misconception that for me to recover meant I needed to gain weight and basically have to accept a body that I didn't like. That has not been the case. My life is more free than it's ever been, and I enjoy my figure more than I ever have, without any guilt, without any secrecy, without any scheming and planning. Life is so much easier now, and I love my physique. So I wanted to really make sure that if you're alone and isolated in your eating disorder, you know you have nothing to be ashamed of. It's not who you are, and it doesn't mean that to get out of it, you have to hate the new you or your physique in any way. If anything, the opposite. And if you do decide that you would like to go through with Binge Code, I have three major tips for you. One is to be honest. Be honest with your coach. So if you've had a bad week, be honest about it, own it. There's nothing to be ashamed of. And be honest with yourself. Really look into answering the questions wholeheartedly and doing the homework. Really got to do the work. So be honest on all fronts. Also, be patient. You've got to be patient with yourself. Recovery for me was 3 steps forward, 5 steps back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, just back and forth. And I really had to be patient with myself. And I still am patient with myself. I still have many moments where I'm triggered, but I now have the skills, I now have the confidence, I now have more reasons than ever why I choose not to do it. And then lastly, if you're gonna go through with Binge Code, get excited. Because if you can commit to this, if you can be honest, if you can be patient with yourself, your life is going to open up in the most beautiful ways. You're going to have time to do the things you've been wanting to do, to show up as a person you've wanted to show up as, to actually pursue what you've been dreaming about, but your eating disorder has held you back from. And I will forever be grateful to Marcella for encouraging me to start my YouTube channel. And that has been such a fun, creative outlet for me. And I would have never done it if I were stuck in the shame, guilt, and just bogged down by my eating disorder. Covered a lot there, but I hope that you know that you're worth it. I also realize the cost can be intimidating. I can tell you that now that I've graduated from the program, I treated myself to a designer bag, which was not a problem because I have saved so much time and money. So much money I have saved, even paying for the coaching. I've saved so much money by not buying a ton of binge food. So know you're worth it. Know it'll be worth it. You just got to do the work and know that you're worth it. And thank you, Marcella. Thank you, Binge Code team. Thank you. I mean, there's got to be a new word for thank you because that doesn't cut it. But thank you.